Welcome into the final podcast of 2024, or you could say first of 2025 here on the Vandy Sports Podcast alongside Chris Lee. I'm Billy Derrick. As Chris, we've got some big news, and I'm just going to give you the floor here to give your thank yous. And I know you put a message on the board earlier today, but pretty special stuff for our team here.
Yeah, we are making the move and taking the business that we have built. I say we includes me, you, Joey, Elena, Brandon, Justin. And if you want to go back a couple of decades, Mike Rapp, Jesse Johnson, and if you want to be real about it, the people that are listening and watching this, you guys all helped us build this. I've always said that. I don't think people believe it, but it always takes a community to do things. And so we are moving to 24/7 sports. I can't even speak. It's been a tough day. And I say that in all sincerity. I am excited about the move, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But I would feel a little awkward not reflecting, and I'll do some of it now and do some of it later. But it's always hard when you leave something, even as excited as you are about the next opportunity. And make no mistake, we did this because we thought it was a good business move, and also, and just as much, we thought it served the fan base better to have the two biggest paid communities in one place. And by the way, in case you're wondering, Robbie Weinstein is sticking around. We're bringing all our staff of us over there, and we're just joining forces in one big giant. Well, it's not giant, it's Vanderbilt, but the biggest thing that you'll find for Vanderbilt. But with that, it's going to be weird, and you're going to see this New Year's Day. We're doing this at 12:43, just after noon on New Year's Eve, and it's going to be weird not waking up and going to the place that's been part of my life for it will have been 22 years. I think January the 3rd or 4th of 2025. And I've done the math on it. If you took all the time I put on that site and the podcast and you ran it together in contiguous days, it would literally be like 3 years of my life, like with no lunch breaks, no sleeping, no, just that. It's been that long of an effort. And yet I think this is kind of where market conditions come in. You think about how much of your life you put into something, and it's maybe enough to pay one of us full time. It's been a difficult endeavor, I'll be honest. And so instead of taking all the money and whatever I could get, I have farmed out the work to you and some others, and just split it several ways. It's always been a tough business to make go. Looking at the fan base and what was there in Birmingham, it feels like the fan base, I think, is shrunk in half by the last decade. So, all that to say, thank you for those who've supported this in good times and in bad. We hope you're with us on the other side. And we need your support because it matters. It really does. It's how we've kept this alive.
I'm interested. You mentioned in your board post at the beginning of it, going back to 2002, when Brent High, of course, one of your good friends, had approached you about it. And I'm sure, looking back at that now, I mean, it's been 22 years. That's got to be crazy to think about. And this should act as sort of a payoff, like a huge payoff, where number one, it makes everyone's life easier. Number two, this is huge for Vanderbilt fans. And really, number three, it is great for business. And I think moving forward, Chris, this is something that will help all of us, but most importantly, Vanderbilt fans. We want to serve Vanderbilt fans, and it all started in 2002. But going back to that's got to be crazy looking back. That year in 2002, that's when it all started.
Well, 03, but 02 is when I got approached that fall. I think it was around Thanksgiving. And I think the pitch went like this: "Hey, you want to come run a Vandy site?" And I'm like, "Sure." And at the time, I was just dumb enough to not know what I was getting into. Maybe still you can make that argument. Um, but yeah, I mean, and just walking back down memory lane, it was weird. I had I'd gone to Lipscomb, I'd gone to MTSU, and I had just finished grad school a few years before. And I had an analytical type brain, and had just kind of been in the financial services world and had just gotten out of it. I was thinking about doing that. And sometime a couple years before that, this little dream I had when I was a kid about doing sports writing, it just kind of come back into consciousness. Maybe that's what happens when you're like, well, I think I want to do this. No, I really don't want to do that. And then all of a sudden it's just like, hey, wait a minute. I had this over here, like, is 10-year-old me that I never went into. And perhaps if at Lipscomb had offered a journalism major, I might have just done it then. But it was just weird how the whole thing happened. I had this little dream sitting in the back of my head. And I thought at that time, especially having gone into the financial field for just a little bit and having an MBA and having an undergrad in business, I thought, well, I was really bent towards analytics at that time, which was just about to start to explode. And I thought my future was going to be maybe in writing fantasy baseball and football stuff, or maybe just baseball analytics type stuff. And so I had that already brewing in the back of my head. I'd self-published a book just before that, I think, or around then. Time flies and blurs together, but I'd at least started that pursuit. And then, as God would have it, sometimes he just directs your steps in certain ways and you don't know why. And boy, I've questioned a lot of things over the years since then with the time I put into it. But I do think it was something that I was meant to do. Running a Vanderbilt website had never crossed my mind until Brent called me. And learned really quickly that you can't do it alone. Saw a few people try to compete against us doing it alone. I could have told any of them from the jump, it's not going to work. You will drive yourself crazy. There aren't enough hours in the day. And back to the whole team thing, I was fortunate to align myself with the right people then, and Jesse and Mike, and now you and Joey. And I guess God gave me an intuitive sense to pick good people, because I mean, without that, this is just, it's not happening. And without the people that subscribe to it too. Some of you are there watching or listening to this have been with me for 20 years or more. Countless people have been with us and passed away, sad to say, in that time. And there was a guy named Tommy Door that was on our site for a long time. Just, you woke up one morning and somebody posts he passed away the previous night. A lot of good people. But I'm rambling now, but that to say, it was just funny how it all came together. And I literally, I don't say this out of me, I had no business doing what I was doing. I knew how to write. I knew grammar, I knew syntax, I knew those things, but writing as a sports writer is different. And I had to write a lot of embarrassing pieces before, who's going to tell him?
Right.
and thankfully I had made friends by that time with people like Brett Haight, who was with the city paper at the time, and actually been with me at Rivals, and Teresa Walker of the AP, who's been a really good friend, friends with both those people to these days. But I was fortunate that God also brought people into my life, not just to help me, but just to say, hey, idiot, you're doing this all wrong. And I'm sorry I'm rambling. I don't know how else to do this.
No, this is the time to ramble.
Right. I mean, and I made the post. This is 45 minutes after I made the post on our site that, hey, we are departing Rivals as of, midnight tonight or whatever was in there. And it was really hard just to send the post. I'm excited about what's ahead, But when you're leaving a thing that's been part of you and you've been part of, and people at the place you're leaving, as excited as you are about all that, I think you have a lot to reflect on. And I think that's, again, I'm sorry to everybody for rambling, but that's a little bit of what is coming out as we do this right now.
No, that's cool. I mean, I think the background is good, and I know fans have a ton of questions, and that's where I want to kind of end it, Chris. Role definition, at least for the team, and at least for me, I'm going to be doing a lot of this, what I'm doing right now,
Yeah.
podcasting. I really won't be doing a ton of writing. I'll be on the board. I'll be hosting. I'll go ahead and say it, basically a daily podcast live show, Monday through Thursday, starting at 10 a.m. Chris will be on occasionally. Robbie will be on occasionally. Joey will be on occasionally. We'll still do the Roundtable podcast every Wednesday with Chris and Luke. So that's what I've got going on my plan. We'll be doing a lot more social media stuff in terms of graphics and maybe even pictures down the road and more videos and ramping up the video and podcast portion of everything. But Chris, I'll give it to you to kind of talk about what the roles are going to be, who's going to be doing what, and really just what subscribers need to know moving forward with this move, because there will be questions.
Well, and let me start by reminding myself to table the part of your role that we need to get to. And now I want to let you talk about that a little bit. But I would, let's not bury the lead. I think the lead is genuinely this: like everything that you liked about us, everything you like about the way Robbie ran 24/7 sports. Now, I mean, the alien invasion is coming as we're releasing this. And so that might be interesting. I say that kind of kidding. The boards have different cultures and those kind of things. And I'm and all joking aside, I'm extremely respectful of what Robbie has built. And part of doing this and part of the lessons that you learn over the years are that you can't do it all yourself. And if you've got an ego enough to think that you're like irreplaceable or you're something you're not, you'll get brought down a few pegs immediately. I just don't have time in my life, for reasons that I'll get to in a minute, to do some of the things I used to do. But it's always been in the back of my head, like, man, if we could kind of merge with them and make this into one place, would that be fantastic or what? And I think the things that Robbie Weinstein is really, really good at, he's the best in the market, is recruiting coverage, especially for football and portal coverage. And I think that's what gets Robbie energized. That does not energize me one bit. I will do it when I have to. I think none of us are crazy about it other than Justin Angel, who we've brought back. And so that's a chance to kind of let him take what he's great at in his space and do it. And not that roles won't overlap, not that he won't help us with practice coverage or team coverage, but it's mostly going to be whatever he wants to do. And with respect, again, to what he's built that we're walking into, that's not lost on me. And the stuff we do that you like or maybe don't like, depending on who you are, for the most part, that's not going to change. We're still going to kill it in team coverage. We're still going to be there at practices where those are open. We will lend a hand on portal and recruiting coverage, and particularly with Justin. I think that gives Justin a chance to really do a lot of what he does well. Maybe let Robbie focus some on the mechanics of the portal and who's visiting, and let Justin do analysis. And Justin's a high school football coach, so he can do that piece like none of us can do. We bring a big message board community. The site's going to get a lot bigger just with people posting about stuff here and there. I think I would just say, like, the stuff that you liked about us that we already do, we're going to do it, and probably a little bit more. I think the platform over there for writing is more conducive. I've seen some concerns about, like, oh, they're just going to come and make everything a podcast. No, we're not. We will still continue to do a lot of that and probably then some. But I think there's some specific opportunities over there, without getting into specifics and boring everybody, that'll make writing easier to get found, among other things, which helps us maybe monetize a little bit more, which helps us run a business, which at the end of the day, this is what this is. So I would just say to people, like, take everything that you already liked about our site at VandySports and Vandy247, merge those into one place, and that's kind of what is coming next. except hopefully better now that there's more people to spread all the stuff that we have to do around.
Yeah, I mean, it's diehard Vanderbilt fans coming together, and a lot of subscribers on the Rivals board were already subscribed to 247. But for those who weren't, uh, Rivals will handle that for you. They will be there for you. I know Josh from Rivals put a message up there and basically saying that if you have any questions, let me know here on the board, and they'll get that sorted out. But Chris, that is all, like what you said, what we're excited about. We're excited about having Robbie with the football coverage, and obviously with some basketball and baseball help as well. Joey, Justin, Elena, Brandon, you and I couldn't be more excited. I think it's great for everybody. It's great for the brand, and let's have some fun.
Well, and I want to transition with some things into kind of what you're going to be doing here next. And again, a lot of it comes out of just my last few years. I've somehow ended up in this spot in life where I've got a 10-year-old son, a 13-year-old daughter, two parents who just went into assisted living this year, in-laws in Colorado who probably need to be in assisted living, which is a burden on my wife who works full time. And just between all that, I mean, just right about the time spring practice was about to start, my dad had to have a surgery, and people kind of warned me, you need to be there to, be ready because this might not go well. And that's kind of what happened. And I didn't really have time to pick up and help take care of it until it happened. Just to be blunt about it, Dad ended up almost passing away a few weeks later. And that required a lot of my attention. And my mother has also got dementia, and that's come on quickly. And I've just kind of been thrown this world the last few years where there's a lot going on. I'd launched Southeastern 16, which is, if I'm going to not work to 90, that's got to be a part of my life too. And just these world of converging things, that's just kind of a window in my personal life, and it's not getting any easier. Raising school-age kids doesn't get any easier. It doesn't require less of your time. You go from, changing diapers a few years ago to other things now. When your parents hit their 80s, it just changes so quickly. And I wake up a lot of days and I'm just going, I don't even know what I'm doing 10 minutes from now, but that's why I have a calendar, and I hope to God I put in what's next. And part of that is just kind of recognizing your limits on stuff, which is one reason was it 2 summers ago now? I think I brought you in.
I'm trying to think. I think that's right. Yeah.
And I didn't really intend to be off the podcast and off the site as much as I was at times. But when you're, when you got life or death things with your parents, and your kids have needs that only a dad and a mom can deal with, sometimes you go into a day and you got plans and it's nothing like what you thought it was going to be. And thank God I got out ahead of it a little bit with you and Joey. Because I don't even want to think about what that would have been like. But I've slowly, you've seen a lot more of Billy on this show than you have of me. And I'm not going away. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you just got a window in my world, and I don't know what's next from day to day. But my commitment has been to make sure the coverage that we have put together, and the community we've established and all that stuff, that it doesn't go to waste. Whether that's me putting in, 60 hours a week like I used to, those days are gone. They're not coming back. Some days it might be a few hours. Some weeks it might be 20 or 30, just depending on what's going on. But all that to say, the legacy aspect of this has been in the back of my head for a few years. It explains a lot of what we've done. It explains a lot of the move to 24/7. I'm just like, hey, let's capitalize on all the stuff we've done and make this community and this service go forward, and continue to hopefully benefit everybody, even if I get hit by a bus tomorrow. And I think we've done that. And with that, I don't know what you want to say about some things we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I'll give
Well,
you the floor, or to not.
yeah, I mean, we're going to be doing Monday through Thursday, as I mentioned earlier, a live podcast starting at 10 o'clock. Some days we'll go 30 minutes, some days we'll go 45 minutes. Probably won't go as long as an hour unless we need to sometimes. But we want basically live interaction. And if you can't join live at 10 a.m., then you can watch later. It'll be on our YouTube channel. It'll be on our Apple Podcast, Spotify page every day. And we'll have guests on. It's not just going to be Chris, Robbie, or Joey. Wednesdays, obviously, it'll be Chris and Luke. But say Vanderbilt basketball has Kentucky in town, I'll bring somebody in from Kentucky to talk about the Wildcats and talk about the matchup, or any guest you guys want to have on. This is going to be a free flowing podcast. We have contributors that I'll have on at some points, and I just want it to be fun. And again, I wrote a lot more than I will be doing now, and really won't be doing a ton more writing, because in order to help Joey, help you, Chris, and it felt like I needed to. But I'm excited to get more into the video podcast aspect of this, and because like Robbie's transfer portal analysis is really good. Obviously, we want to save a lot of that for the board, but Robbie will have a scoop or two on a podcast, and Joey will have a basketball scoop or two here on a podcast. And I think people like that. People love the podcast. So, and as opposed to you having to host and get on for an hour, Chris, I'll have you on for 20 minutes, on a certain day. And you can provide your expertise, especially on the SEC side, previewing a lot of these basketball matchups. So, and a lot of the graphic stuff, like, Twitter, I do have control of the VandySports Twitter account. So I'll be posting after games, scores, player of the game, and I'll be doing a lot more of initially what I wanted to do. And that wasn't in a bad way. I felt like I did need to write to help, but now I think my, window of social media, video, podcasts, graphics, stuff like that is what I'll be honing in on. And I think I'm hoping people like that side of it, because we certainly have the writing covered now.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to do a little bit more writing. Again, it's just with my world, something could change as we're doing this, and
Right.
you don't, only God knows, and you just wake up every day and you try to do the best you can. And for people wondering, I've done more of these things than I have the writing, and it's just because with time being limited, I mean, it's such, and I never would have thought I'd been doing this. Like, I'm a kind of a shy person by nature. If you told me 20 years ago that a major part of this is going to be video, I would have been petrified. But it's a good way to, and audio too, but it's a good way to, you can get a lot of information out there really quickly. Much more than you can writing. I know some people don't watch this or listen to it. If you haven't, I would encourage you to. Some people just like to read stuff, and I get it. You play these on double speed, audio and video. That helps you consume a lot more. But
We want you to interact as well. We want the comments and the questions, and
look,
after the bowl game, we got them. That was a good example of what that can look like.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Well, I mean, I say that the sports landscape changed a lot just in the last few months. Because, like, if we were doing this a year ago, we were still doing, the football team had gotten creamed. And Jerry Stackhouse was still the coach of the basketball team. And so I don't think there would have been good stuff to talk about. So I guess the timing's right. But I don't know why I never really thought of what this will be like a daily radio or TV show for Vanderbilt fans, 1 hour a day or something along those lines. And is it something we probably should have done a long time ago? Maybe, but I just don't think the timing was right because the product was so bad. And I mean, it's just, some weeks I think it's been torture for all of us just to do one episode a week, because, like, what do you talk about? Thankfully, that is kind of, we're working our way out of the darkness here a little bit. Who knows what's around the corner, but it looks a lot better. But yeah, all that to say, I think it'll be a new product, and I think it's one that we're excited about for sure. And I'm excited to see what you can do with it. Billy, you're really talented. And when I started thinking, like, who would I want to, kind of take over and run a lot of this, you were a pretty easy choice.
Well, I appreciate it, Chris. It's been a blast being here, and there was no hesitation with me agreeing to this when you called.
I don't
Laughingly,
know
I
if that
think I might.
reflects well on you, but anyway.
But laughingly, jokingly, I think I said no at first, but obviously this was a no brainer for everybody. And again, there will be questions to be answered, but hopefully we do a good job of answering those. But Chris, I'm going to send it over to Robbie Weinstein now and to close it out. And but any last words from you? We've got the new year coming, but we've got a lot of new stuff coming here at VandySports.com. Well,
Yeah,
Vandy247.
To borrow a phrase you've heard before, trust the process. The moving over from one thing to the other in one day isn't always smooth. We'll make it as smooth as we can. I do think you'll see the product get better quickly. I know Joey's been pre-writing stuff for weeks because he's Joey Dwyer and that's what he does. And I'm like, there are a lot of days I wake up like, but I'd like to have that life back again where I've got that kind of time, but that's not where we are. Yeah, I mean, a very heartfelt thank you to everybody. Those of you listening, those of you who sponsored it, Billy, you and the guys that work with me, to Robbie Weinstein for very enthusiastically saying yes to this. And by the way, if you don't know Robbie's work, he's a good dude and he's tremendously talented. You're going to love his stuff. So, I hope you get to know him a little bit if you don't already. And yeah, just, thank you to Rivals for all the years of, probably giving a community like us more service than we deserve, given the size. We couldn't help that, but Rivals has been great. I have nothing bad to say about that company on the way out. I wish them the best. Still have friends there, and very excited to be with CBS in 24/7. Love those guys too, as I'm getting to know them. Have friends over at that network, and yeah, I think I hope we look back. I look at this and I say I think the best is yet to come, and I think when we do this a year from now, I think you'll say we were, God willing, we were right.
That's Chris Lee, publisher of Vandy247. Happy New Year, everybody. But coming up, we're going to close it out with an interview with Robbie Weinstein. All right, wrapping things up with Robbie Weinstein from Vandy247. Robbie, pretty big night for Vandy fans. Not only is the football team rolling, got the Birmingham Bowl victory, and obviously Jerry Kill, Tim Beck, all those guys, Diego Pavia, Stowers coming back. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that, but I want to give you a chance to talk about this with you. You're not moving, you're staying put, but just how excited are you for this? I know it frees you up in certain ways, but also just for Vanderbilt fans, I think they'll be really excited about this.
Yeah, it really does bring me up. I think subscribers who have been around 24/7 for a long time, obviously kind of the bread and butter of what we do is football and football recruiting, evaluation and analysis. And so that certainly is going to continue, and all the transfer portal scoops and all that will still be there. But I think that probably I'm going to be focusing on football recruiting primarily. And I think that that's going to certainly free me up to do even more of that and have the quality be even better, while at the same time providing subscribers with a really blowout coverage of all the major sports, which is going to be really awesome.
Yeah, in terms of Vanderbilt and the timing of this for the athletic department, I was talking to Chris earlier. I think it's perfect. Like if this was to happen last year, before a basketball season like we witnessed last year, and after a football season that we witnessed last year, might not have worked out the best. We probably still could have done it, but we wouldn't have had a ton to talk about. And now, with the way this football program has won on the field, but also off the field with a player like a Diego Pavia, it feels like a perfect time for Vanderbilt fans to enjoy something like this and really make it the go-to spot for Commodore fans.
Yeah, well, and I mean, to be honest, I think from a recruiting standpoint, it's never been more exciting for fans, in that Vandy has now leaned into the transfer portal more. I totally understand how a lot of fans in the past would have been not that interested in recruiting, because these high schoolers sometimes are 2, 3, 4 years away from really making a mark, or are they ever going to contribute for your team? Whereas you bring in 20 transfers or 15 transfers, whatever it is, they're all expected to contribute immediately and have some sort of impact for the most part on next season. And so that makes the offseason, I would say, even more exciting than it has ever been for fans. And on top of that, now that the quarterback is back, there's really no reason not to expect another winning season and more success. I mean, this has been, you combine that with basketball, and then baseball obviously remains strong. And all of a sudden, it's like the dark ages of Vandy athletics have transformed into something that's very relevant on a national stage, which is just cool for all of us to cover as well.
Yeah, and listen, we all endured the last season, the kind of the pain of that. Fans were in pain, but also it wasn't necessarily fun for people that cover the team. But I do think the athletic department deserves some credit, whether it's in the marketing department. I mean, after the Alabama game, we were in the press box. They played Nick Saban's comments on College Game Day. Like, it feels like some things have really changed, and yeah, they might be behind in certain areas still to certain schools, but in the SEC pecking order, what Vanderbilt's doing isn't different in a bad way. It's they're doing the same things that other SEC schools are doing, and I think that's a good thing, Robbie. And really, they had no other choice, right? If it's adapt or die, and they're adapting, and I think you do have to give the athletic department credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how hard they're able to push and keep pushing, because I think we all know that this has become pseudo-professional sports, and it reminds me a lot of European soccer at the highest levels, where if you're not adding and increasing your budget basically every offseason, then you're going to get left behind. And so there's still a ton of work ahead for Vandy, for sure. I think they were really slow and not prepared for the NIL era, but gradually have gotten up to speed. And so at the same time, I think there's still going to be a lot of action moving forward, right? Because they're going to need to continue to double down and triple down on the investments that they've started to make. What they've done so far is not going to be good enough, and I'm sure that they know that. So there's still, we're in this weird almost transition period in college sports, and certainly that affects Vandy as well. But there's still, I mean, it's possible that 2 or 3 years from now, what are things going to look like in terms of the money, and what is Vanderbilt going to look like? Is the football program going to be this consistent winning presence, or it's going to take effort to not drop back down to where they've been in the past? So there's a lot of unanswered questions, but I think for now, if I'm a fan, I'm kind of excited about next season.
Yeah, I want to hit football real quick with you. We were both at the Birmingham Bowl. What did that do for momentum for this program? Obviously, bowl games may not mean as much to other programs, but it does feel like bowl games right now, there hasn't been a ton of teams that you look at and go, wow, that team just did not want to be there. And I think Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech were two of those teams. Obviously, it got testy, but how big was that win for this program in terms of recruiting and everything that goes into making sure this program has another winning season next year?
Well, I think, when Diego Pavia gets up there and says, if you want to come play for a win or play for Vanderbilt, that doesn't make any sense if they didn't have the winning season, right? They hadn't had a winning season in over 10 years. That is such a long time. I was an 18-year-old college freshman back then. So that is that's something that other schools have always been able to use to recruit against Vanderbilt, and for good reason. These kids want to win. And so I think just from a standpoint of, it's nice to get to a bowl game, but going 6-6 really isn't that huge of an accomplishment in the grand scheme of things. There's 40, 50, 60 plus teams, or however many that can get to 6 wins. But when you're able to get a winning season, I think that does answer some questions, regardless of how the 7th win comes. And, it did come against a solid opponent that had some opt-outs, but, Vandy was down the left tackle or quick tackle and ran and fought net too. So I think it was pretty big. It would have felt like such a letdown, I think, if after everything that happened this season, they didn't even have a winning record. And then it's like, okay, has the offense been figured out, and where do they go from here? All that effort, and you still don't even have a winning season. So I think it's significant for recruiting purposes. It's probably going to be bigger to string together winning seasons, but it's helpful.
All right, last thing here before we ring in the new year. What are you most excited for with this merge? And also, are there any unanswered questions that because there will be questions from your subscribers and also our subscribers that might be moving over. But what excites you most about this, and are there any questions that you want to go ahead and answer for for
Well,
some of your
yeah,
subscribers?
unanswered questions, I don't know. I think I would just encourage new subscribers who have been on the Rivals platform for a long time to explore what 24/7 has to offer in terms of, I think the database for the player database is really great. We have the largest army, I would say, of talent evaluators and scouts who are getting out to events. And so that has a lot of value. Being able to see the other team sites and what's going on there has a lot of value. What I'm most excited about, this will seem a little bit random, but I am, as I think most people watching this probably don't know this, I'm actually in the MBA program at Vanderbilt. And so I've been doing this part-time since February 24, after I had been full-time for like 3.5, 4 years. So what I'm excited is that I haven't had time to cover women's basketball how I want to. And that team is ranked like in the top 10 or top 15 of the net, and looks like they could host the NCAA tournament at Memorial Gym. And so to be able to get more women's basketball coverage, I think they fully deserve it. And I'm really excited that we're going to get a lot more of that with Elena Morris.
Yeah, that'll be really good. Obviously, we'll have basketball on the men's side fully covered. We'll have football, baseball as well. But Robbie, looking forward to it. Looking forward to continue to working with you, and hopefully have a good 2025.
All right. Thanks, you too, Billy. I'm sure we'll be talking plenty.